Hey guys, this is Lucid. We started another game of Dominion's Allstars on Althea's server. If I've actually had a lot of trouble with games on Althea's server with people going AI, and I don't know. When I do Llama server games on my channel, I don't know. I feel like people are more kind of dedicated. So I don't know if we'll probably put it up, but I don't know. We'll see. If you're watching this, there's a good chance that I've decided to upload it. So, it's a really, I think it's an interesting game idea. So, Dominion's All-Stars, the idea is you pick a bunch of units from the whole game, and there's like a snake draft, so the first person picks one, and then it goes down, and everybody picks their first unit, and then whoever was the last to pick the first unit will be the first to pick the next set of, I think, like 4 units. And so anyway, it's a snake draft, so it goes like that, and people kind of pick their units. And I think it's fun to try. I think it's probably going to be a horrible... I think it's going to be way less fun than normal Dominions, but I could be wrong. It'll be fun to try, for sure. I want to try it, but... the reason is it's going to homogenize the game. Like, everybody's going to have access to everything. Pretty much. Like, with the number of picks you get... you don't really have to make hard trade-offs. Like, if you got 5 picks rather than 14, you would have to make, like, real hard trade-offs and you couldn't do everything. But with 14 picks, you can basically do everything. With 6, like, honestly, with 8 picks, you could do most important things if you needed to. 5 picks would be pretty tough. Because that's going to have to cover your cap-only mages, your normal mages, your troop commanders, your scouts, your troops. That would be a little... yeah, maybe like 7 or 8 would be okay. 14, it's a lot. So, we've just finished drafting the units. I haven't finished picking my spells and national items, so I have an idea about what I'm going to get. Yeah. So... let us chat. My first pick, I'll just show you the draft. So, when I went, well, let me actually pull up, one second, let me pause it. Okay, so, yeah, when you pull up this, oh wait, no, this is General Confusion's game. So, here's our game, we're way ahead of General Confusion in terms of drafting, in his group. So it's a cool group of guys, I think. I played with Professor JB before. I've played with... I might have... and forgive me if I've played with you and I don't remember. I know I've played with What's. I think I've played with Marijanama, or however you say that. I'm not sure. I think I've played with Felix, but I'm not sure. And I think I played with Cooler, but I'm not sure. Anyway. So, my first pick was Niflheim, and I got a Thaumaturg. So the rules, I'll just show you flash the rules up real quick. Basically, you pick your nation and no repeats. This part is a little confusing, but basically you're gonna get, if you look right here where my mouse is, you get the first round of drafting is your nation plus 1 unit, any kind of unit. The next is 4 units, the next is 4 units, the next is 5 units. Now, of the total 14, if you sum that up, of the total 14 units, you can have up to, so you must have at least 2 cap-only things. So you can't have no cap-only things. You must have at least 2 cap-only things. You can have up to 4 cap-only things. And then the rest are made up of commanders and units. You get all the national spells that come with your base nation. You get all the Dominion effects, the bless bonuses, the fort levels, the PD, the fort wall, PD, the cap gem income, the national events, the income penalty, the national items, national spells. So you get all that stuff. Did I zoom out? Okay, whatever. You get all this. But in addition, you get to pick 2 other national spells that are not native to that nation. And they cannot be blood summoning spells. And then you get one national item, and then you get to do any pretender chassis. You're not really limited to your pretender pool. So I haven't figured out at all, I haven't even really thought too much about my pretender chassis. I just know I'm going scales, but I don't know which type of scales we're gonna go. General Confusion is doing cool things, like he's making Trollheim, so if you haven't checked his thing, well, my videos always upload way after his, because I don't put him up so close to the game, but, so you'll probably have already seen his, but anyway. So he's going for a cool, fun strategy. I'm going for, like, min-max, as one does. So I have picked Niflheim and Thaumaturg, and the reason why... I'm trying to think if I have... Okay, there's a few reasons for Niflheim. One is, a fair number of these are cold nations. I mean, heat nations. Like, and some of these really do not like, these guys are not, all of these guys are cold-blooded, basically. So, I mean, he's got bat. Felix has bats. Not only bats, but here's another cold-blooded guy. Other people have Camazotz and stuff, so there's a fair amount of cold-blooded stuff. I think Agartha typically likes going heat, but I could be wrong. Maybe they're neutral scales. Satis definitely likes going heat, and they're cold-blooded. And these guys kind of need to get cold-blooded dudes. Pythium, I can't remember their heat preference. I think the monkeys are generally heat preference rather than cold. I don't ever remember seeing a heat monkey. I think Airmore is probably neutral or heat. Yomi almost always goes heat. Marverni is probably neutral, I think. And then we have Niflheim and Arco and Falegra. These guys are probably neutral. There's not really anybody else, except for Jotunheim, who's a cold nation that I can see, obviously. And I could be wrong. So one of the reasons for going Niflheim is just putting up Illwinter and fucking everybody else over. Because I've had it done to me so many times. It'll be nice it'll be cathartic to do it to other people. The other reason for going Niflheim is because I have the Thaumaturg. I am going to be Undead Apocalypse. And this guy also has reanimators with the Rakatapa, or however you say it. They're going to be probably a little more efficient than my Thaumaturgs. But my Thaumaturgs, I think, are going to be... Well, we'll talk about it. But I have better Undead, I think. And I'll show you by coming over here. So, here are about a third of my long dead are going to be these guys. Now, if you're on low resolution, you're not going to be able to. Maybe I can zoom in and zoom out. Can I scroll? Okay, it's not going to let me scroll. So anyway, we'll do it like this so you can see. But I find it. I could have sworn I saw it up here. 1 second. Okay, yeah, I found it. So it's right here. So we get about a third of our guys are these guys. And importantly, they have 20 strength, so they siege much better. They hit really freaking hard. They have a spear, which is only 3 damage, but it's added to 20 strength. So it's like 23, and I think... Is it two-handed? No, it's not. They have shields too. So these guys are kind of... I mean, these are good troops. And they're no upkeep. They siege for a shit ton. They have not great protection, but not horrible. Given that they also have a shield. And, yeah. I mean, these guys are pretty baller. And they're just kind of a pure upgrade. The other nice thing about them is they do so much damage as piercing damage. 23 piercing damage is going to go through most protection. So if somebody's like relying mostly on protection, these guys are going to pop through it. And I don't even care about them. They're just completely disposable. So that's one of the reasons for going Niflheim. The other reason for going Niflheim is Illwinter and having cold everywhere. And having cold everywhere, my troops are going to be immune to any kind of fatigue play. So we can do all sorts of fatigue plays like Rigor Mortis and Grip of Winter. So if people march into my land and they don't have cold resistance, they're going to get just ripped apart. Absolutely ripped apart. So that is part of it. And our Skelly spam that we're going to get with our Thaumaturgs, because our Thaumaturgs are some of the best Skelly spammers in the game. I won't say they're the best, but they're up there. Yeah, so these guys will pop out as we Skelly spam, which is a big deal for Skelly spam too, because a lot of Skelly spam is just getting critical mass of HP on the field. I thought about also doing it with Satis, but Satis was taken, MA Satis. Now Satis doesn't really get better troops, but the Poison Dominion and the income bump is kind of ridiculous. And it didn't, I don't think it got picked in the last All-Stars game. So I was kind of hoping it would be free. But people started chitter-chattering about it in the chat, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get it. Because I was not very high on the drafting order for first pick. The other option would have been like MA Ulm. And retrospectively, that may have been the better choice. It's hard to say. I was thinking about it a lot, because MA Ulm gets more heavily armored dudes, and they also have a greatsword that hit just about as hard. Now, the greatsword isn't piercing, so there's that. So I would say the troops are kind of on par. They get a better fort. They also get Iron Blizzard, which is kind of useful. But I was thinking, you know, honestly, like if you look, what made me swing was when I looked at the national lineup. I was like, man, if I drop, like, Illwinter is something that will just break me out of the game. Like, I mean, it can kind of win the game for me. Now, one of the things is that apparently Second Son, it used to be Illwinter trumped everything, like Second Son wasn't more powerful than it. Well, apparently now Second Son is more powerful than Illwinter, or it will cancel it out. Or even more than cancel it out. I think it slightly even overpowers it. But I could be wrong. It may just completely cancel it out. So, that puts me in a bit of a pickle in terms of what do I do. Because I would like to freeze everybody out and kill their income. But I'm not completely sure if I'm going to... There's one way to counter Second Son, and that is I get Theft of the Sun. And this is also allowed to take as a national spell. Now, Theft of the Sun is good for a few reasons. It grants you 10 fire gems and 5 pearls, and it covers the world in darkness, so it reduces income and resources by 30. I'm not sure. I've used this before when I played Dominion, or Subalban Dominions 4. I think it also applies to your own stuff. I'm pretty sure it does, but I'm not positive. If it doesn't, I'm definitely going to get it. So I need to ask, but... the fire gems and pearls is nice, and also you get constant darkness. Now, how good is constant darkness? If you look at the final lineup, while I think cold is going to be very useful, I'm very much uncertain how good darkness is going to be. And the reason I say that is almost everybody has some kind of Skelly spam. Like either they have Buddhas or Seth Kona, or like I have Thaumaturgs, or we have Undead Reanimation. Here we have a Troll Sethbender who can do Undead Reanimation. coming down here, we have a sorcerer who I might be able to. I can't remember. There's just everybody's going to have some kind of skelly spam. Now, they are not going to have as much of it as I will. But anyway, we haven't even been through all my units, so let's go through my units next. And then I'll kind of talk about the spells. But that was one of the main reasons for going Niflheim was for the cold being pushed everywhere, and with a lot of people that don't really have cold preference nations. And then the second with Illwinter, and the second was better giants. Yeah. So, let's talk about units here. We've got, the first unit I got was the Thaumaturg, and this guy's a boss. S1D1 is sick, and then Holy 2 is really nice. Holy 2 is especially good. So these guys are really cheap. Like, if you look at their upkeep, they have the upkeep of a 55 gold unit, which is ridiculous. And if you compare that to a lot of the other good, like communions, undead spammers, these guys are going to be way cheaper than a lot of them over the long run. And then, of course, they can reanimate, which is the main reason I'm getting them. Now, these guys can also reanimate long dead horsemen, which I don't think I'm going to want to do since I'm Niflheim, but I could do it, and that actually becomes reasonably efficient if I put an Amulet of the Dead on them. I don't think I'll do that, but anyway, it's an option. The other spell I'm pretty sure I'm going to get, and I'll mention it just because we're here, is I'm probably going to get Power of the Sepulchre. And the reason is, if I get rushed, if the game goes long, I think I'm going to have a hard time losing with all the guys I've picked. But this is going to be available right at the beginning, and it's going to give all my undead 4 attack, strength, and haste. And that just seems really good to me. Too good to pass up on. And there's no way to replace it. Like, if I don't get this, my undead are going to have 4 less attack all game. So, and less speed. So plus 4 attack seems like a big deal to me, especially if we're going to be dealing with thugs and things like that. Potentially defense thugs. You know, that plus 4 attack can make a big difference. So these are the 2 things I'm looking at. The other spell I'm looking at, I'll just mention it now, and I'm not sure I'm going to, but Teaching Sign, this is ridiculous. This is like Power of the Spheres, but it doesn't cost gems, and it requires Nature and Holy. Now on my lineup, it's not going to be useful for that many, but I really only need it useful on... Oh wait, do I not have... We're probably not going to get it then. I thought I had one guy who could jump in communions and do it. But it would have to be a Crystal Matrix on a Dryad, looking at it. So I think this one didn't make the cut. I think we didn't make the cut on this. Would be cool, but honestly, we already have Power of the Spheres, and they stack, but it's like whatever, because... yeah, Power of the Spheres is going to get my Communion Slaves higher level than my Master pretty easily. Yeah. Okay, so next unit is we have the Jotun Scrati. Now, these guys have a lot of different uses. They come in a few different varieties. They come in a water, a death, a nature, and a blood. The first reason to get them is that the water randoms can cast Illwinter, which is important. That means I don't have to get that on my god. Though I may choose to do something like close to that anyway on my god, I don't know. But that's kind of nice. It gives me flexibility. These guys are also just ridiculous thugs, especially if you have fluffers. Like if you have an earth astral fluffer like this guy, they just make extreme thugs with Iron Skin and Body Ethereal cast on them. It's really ridiculous. So anyway, we've got that going for us. The next pick... Okay, wait, we didn't talk about all the uses. The nature ones can jump in communions if I need them to, and they can put nature back on whoever my slaves are. The death ones, I think, are going to be my turbo communion guinea pigs, if you will, or turbo communion slaves. They'll just do Sabbath slave, and then yeah, they'll do Sabbath slave, and then they'll have a death path. So what that means is they'll take, like, once Power of the Spheres come out, they'll be actually Death 2. So they'll be a higher death level than my Thaumaturgs. So they're gonna... 4 of these guys, which I think is what I would try to put in like a major Doom stack, 4 of these guys could power just an unreasonably large amount of Thaumaturgs. And I'd have to test it, but I imagine it's just a horrendous amount. And so, anyway, that's a pretty good way, I think, to have basically a huge turbo communion as something that's possible. That would be pretty good. We can also use them in smaller turbo communions. Like, I can have 2 of them powering, 4 or 5 of these guys. And these guys can just spam out Horde of Skeletons all day. So I can do it in like a 2 to 4 ratio. The problem with 2 is that my guys are only going to be Holy 3, so they won't be able to do Power of the Sepulchre. So I kind of have to make a decision. Do I want to do Turbo Communion with 4 or not? Because if I start mixing in other Communion slaves, they'll just die as these guys kind of take all the hits. Next we have the Dryad. These guys are broken as hell, so of course we're going to get them. There's a few things we can do with them. One, there's 3 different versions of Dryads, so a few different people have Dryads. There's a Nature 1, Holy 1 option. There's a Nature 1, Holy 2 with a random of Water, Nature, I think Earth is the other option. That's the most expensive. I got the mid-tier one, which is this one. It's Water 1, Nature 1, Holy 2. Now, if I choose to get the Teaching Sign, then she can actually do some kind of cool shit, like, well, first of all, she can do Creeping Doom. She can do, like, Teaching Sign, Creeping Doom, which is kind of ridiculous. Second, she can do Teaching Sign, Summon Water Elemental to get another Water Elemental in combat. So it gives me a lot of flexibility with what I want to do for assassinations. Yeah. So it's cool, but if I can't get it onto my communion, I'm not really sure if it's worth it. And right now it doesn't look like I can. So anyway, we'll keep this right here for now. Next we have... Oh, so they're Foul Vapors casters. These guys can also Foul Vapor, my Nature randoms here. And the Nature randoms will be leading communion, so they will be in prime position to do that. So but it's nice having flexibility, not having to rely on one or the other. These ones are definitely cheaper Foul Vapors casters, in the sense they're less upkeep. But they're more expensive in terms of they're not going to be part of a communion, so they're going to have more nature... more nature gems and a Thistle Mace. If I have Teaching Sign, they don't need a Thistle Mace. That would be a reason to do that. Then we have the Warrior Smith, who has a fixed forge bonus. He gets Earth always, with a chance to get Earth 2, a small chance to get Earth 3, and he is going to get basically the Earth Fire cross path, the Earth Water cross path, and then the Earth Air cross path. And then he has a small chance of getting 2 of the other randoms, or a cross path of them. So what is this guy going to be doing? Obviously making lanterns and alquils and frostbrands are the first things that come to mind, but then also potentially reinvig gear like Girdle of Might and stuff like that. And then Earth Boots. He can do a ton of stuff. He also has Forge provide resources, so he's going to give... If I have... I'm not totally sure who my prime researcher is going to be. We'll have to... We'll talk about that as we go down here. But here we go. So next up is the Eagle King. We've got, the reason I wanted to get him is I want to have the option to do turn 1 mass flight. That's the main reason, because if you look down here, I also have the Royal Navigator who can jump in Communion, so that gives me access to all the important air buffs. But this guy can do turn 1 mass flight. He also can do Cloud Trapeze, he can forge all the air items. And I can empower him in blood, because I'm going to have blood through the Scrotty. My blood randoms are probably going to be my blood hunters. Because I guess I didn't really get any other blood hunters, which is fine. These will be enough. I'm not going to be like a blood powerhouse, but I'll have enough blood. And then the blood death can potentially get me into vampires if I want to. That's actually one of the things I'm kind of weak on, is I don't have high death access, so I'll have to kind of bootstrap my way through death. I'll probably need to think, well, I'm going to have it on my god, so. Because one of the things I'm definitely getting is Undead Command. But anyway, these guys, they're storm immune, so they can fly around in storms, which kind of is okay. They have these guys are actually okay thugs. They're really cool thugs. I don't know if they're like the strongest, but they're really cool. And I feel like, I wonder if they fixed it, but it certainly wasn't fixed. It used to be you could fly these guys, like, you could script them 1 turn to attack and they would fly forward, and then you could have them cast spells, and they would cast spells like while near the front line. I think we probably have to satisfy ourselves with advance and cast spells, but you know, these guys can do pretty big shockwave things. But that's mostly it. Yeah, they have built-in fireplate, which is kind of cool. Why do they have such shitty protection? I guess the crown, because their body protection is 16, yeah. But anyway, if you put maybe a little better armor on them, or you just cast Iron Skin, they have built-in shock resistance too, so they get kind of crazy in terms of their protection. So they're really high protection, they have awe built in, so they can thug, they just don't have a high HP pool, but honestly, that's kind of something you can fix these days with, like, it used to be in Dominions 4, it was really hard to adjust your HP, but now I feel like it's much more possible. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like, throwing on even more shock resistance, and then, like, maybe even the copper plate, and then having him do Iron Skin, so they're gonna have ridiculously high shock resistance, and then they can just do shockwave all over themselves. But anyway, the main reason I got them, and I was also thinking of getting the Vantage Rod, because they have sailing, which will combine well with the Royal Navigator, but these guys are just reliably Air 4, so they can do turn 1 Fog Warriors, they can do turn 1 flat mass flight, which is so important if you're going to be relying on skeletons. Because getting that thing, having your skeletons fly 1 turn early can be a huge deal. It can be the difference between them getting off before a storm or after. And it's like, once they've already taken off, doesn't matter if you put storm up. These guys are gonna wreck you. And they're also highly mobile, so that's gonna be nice too, because most of my little communion mages are gonna be kind of trundling around. Next we have the Jotun Scout. These guys have a few special attributes. They're 55 gold, which is not that bad. They're stealthy, which is nice, obviously. They have snow move, forest move, mountain move, which is really good. They have resist cold, which is nice because we're going to have cold everywhere. And they have pretty good base stats, ton of HP. Yeah. And they're also sacred. That's a big thing. So their upkeep, they're actually a pretty cheap, they're like normal scout cost for upkeep. But being sacred, if I take Undead Command, these guys can lead Undead. And that makes them A, very cheap undead leaders. But B, they're pretty thick dudes, so they're not going to get picked off by arrows. If I give them bodyguards, they're probably going to survive a fair number of assassins. So they're pretty thick leaders. They're not going to be vulnerable to a lot of the things that... So this will be like leading undead raiding squads, basically. And I don't have to put any gear on them, they're just ready to go. Magic resistance is okay, not great. And then I can think about it, but I'm not sure. I can potentially put some items on them, like either a bow or let them wade into combat. I'm not sure how I'm feeling on that, but anyway, we'll look at that in the game. But that's definitely an option, is putting a bow on them. Next up, we have the Shadow Seer, and the Shadow Seer is a indie mage. And that's one thing you'll notice, is we have a few indie mages mixed in here. You can get any recruitable mage. So if it's a mage that exists in the base game that you can recruit, if you find a magic site or something, and it has a gold cost, you can get them. So this guy's kind of special. He's one of the cheapest Astral 3s. And Astral 3 is really important. That means he can Cloud Trapeze. So he can Cloud Trapeze and try to magic duel and then do returning or something like that. And pick off all sorts of things. Or he can just sit in provinces. He's stealthy too. So he is basically capable of walking around and preventing Mind Hunt on my Scrotties, which is really nice. I can have him jump in my communions. And having somebody who's only astral, it's a good way. A lot of times these guys are like my thaumaturgs, I love them to death, but when they go off script, they're gonna summon skeletons. This guy, when he goes off script, is gonna soul slay and paralyze and stuff like that. And if there's a super combatant mixed into the troop, it can be really good to have at least one person sitting there nuking them with soul slay, just relentlessly. So anyway, that's nice to have. And stealthy is just a great trait to have on a commander. So 150 gold, stealthy, Astral 3, it's pretty sick. Slow to recruit, but whatever. We're gonna probably have a lot of forts. Next up, we have the Nahuli. For those of you who watched my YouTuber multiplayer game, you will be familiar with how much I like the Nahuli. They can shape change into a turkey, who basically has the same stats but loses all the hand slots. But I don't really care about that. The way you normally use these guys is you have them in the turkey form. If they die in the turkey form, they turn into the human form. So we're gonna have them in the turkey form. They're gonna be flying around and jumping into communions. So as they jump into like a Scrotty communion or a Thaumaturg communion, they are going to be able to do personal regeneration. They can drop mass protection early on, or not early, midway through. They also, because they're higher in nature than they are in astral, it's pretty likely they're going to cast nature buff. So if I put them on advance and cast spells, they're likely going to start spamming out charm, and that is important because that is going to be one of the ways to counter my undead apocalypse. Is having super combatants, but you don't want to use super combatants against 3 or 4 charm casters, let me tell you. So, I forget how high up charm is. Let's take a look. Yeah, oh. Charm animal is 5, but charm is 7. So it's not unattainable, and we could potentially get it kind of early. I have not figured out my research priority. If I go for Theft of the Sun, I may want to get it early, but it may cause too much aggression. But it's enchantment 8. I'm already going to be going to enchantment, let's say, 6 or 7. Because I'm going to want, like, Grip of Winter I'm definitely going to want, which is enchantment 6. And then Life After Death I think is 7. Yeah. So then do I go up one more to get to 8? Depends. If I rush enchantment, then I'm probably going to want to look at like getting Earthblood Deepwell too. It's also going to give me Foul Vapors. I mean, it's going to give me a lot of stuff. And I forget what Serpent's Blessing is. I don't really... The thing is, I think almost all my mages are either holy... This is the only guy that I think would maybe be vulnerable to poison. No, this guy too. I've got a few non-sacred mages, because I was thinking about doing poison resistance, but I can get it where I protect my sacred mages and my communion slaves, but I think I would have some trouble protecting all my mages until I get Serpent's Blessing, which is Enchantment 7. So, yeah, Enchantment 7 is going to be, like, it's going to be no sweat for this guy to fly in and do Serpent's Blessing while this guy does Foul Vapors. If he flies in, joins a communion. So I'm pretty sure enchantment is our first priority. And yeah, this guy is part of a communion, doesn't even need a Thistle Mace. So we can technically get Foul Vapors up without even needing to go construction first, though we will want to later. And construction is just going to be great for Dryads. So I think right now it's looking like enchantment and construction first. Then probably a rush up to alt. Yeah, Enchantment 7 is going to give me Mass Flight too. Then probably a rush up to alt, which is going to give me Darkness and like Fog Warriors and Mass Protection. So, anyway. But yeah, that's probably what it is. And who knows if how far I go in enchantment before I go up construction, because I do have Warrior Smiths. So I'm probably going to go construction 2 really fast to get Alquills, and then I'm not sure where we'll go from there. And it's going to depend somewhat on like what gym income I have and who are my neighbors and stuff like that I don't know now. Okay, Royal Navigator. Why did I get this guy? Oh, no, we skipped High Magus. So High Magus, pretty simple. I wanted the cheaper one, but he got picked already in the draft. But I just wanted the Magus. And the Magus is cheaper, he's like 85, and he's like 1 fire, 1 earth, 1 astral. But in some ways, this guy's better. The reason this guy's better, in some ways, is he can do Phoenix Pyre without being connected to a communion or needing gems. And then I can do Magic Duel with this guy. And he could Magic Duel a few times. And if he dies, you know, he'll respawn. He could potentially blow up my own dudes, but whatever. I can put him where he won't blow up my own dudes on the first death, and then it's like 50-50 who he blows up after that. But I think that's okay. And if I take fire resistance on my Bless, then these guys are probably not going to get blown up. Most of my communion. It may blow up some of my troops, but that may be okay. But Phoenix Pyre is the only way to survive, or like Twiceborn is the only way to survive Magic Duel. So that is another option. I could do Skull Staff on these guys, and then Twiceborn them, take the Skull Staff off, and then have them be little Magic Duelers. The problem is they'll come back as a white mage, which cannot reanimate, but they'll be upkeep free. So anyway, it's a little tomato, which one I want to do, and how many gems I have and all that stuff. But this is another decent option, and because he's Astral 2, he's gonna target Astral 2's, or I can't remember if you target the same or one below by priority. But anyway. I could even potentially do Ring of Returning on him too, and I don't know exactly how that would work. But I have a pretty good idea. If he has Phoenix Pyre and Ring of Returning, he could probably get one Magic Duel off pretty reliably every time and not die. I'd have to see how it works, because Magic Duel is a funky damage mechanic. It may not actually trigger Ring of Returning. Oh man, I kind of want to test that right now. Yeah, let's actually test it. Okay, so got a Ring of Returning. Let's have you come over here, and you're going to do Phoenix Pyre, and then Magic Duel. Now, some of you may say, How did you figure this out? And the answer is, I just think about this stuff. This is what I stay up at night thinking about. Okay, that should be fine. And then yes, let's have you guys break siege heroically. Just don't win both magic duels. Okay, so he died. Where is he now? Oh, he cast it again. Where is that fucker? Okay, it's a Rui, or whatever. Did I break the game? Is he hidden behind a hill? Wait, is this him? Oh. Interesting. So it's not triggering. But then he got hit. Okay, he got trampled and killed in one hit. So, if you figure out how to make it where they don't get killed in one hit, which I think I can probably do, then that would actually be kind of hilarious. So, that is an option we have with these guys, doing crazy shenanigans like that. But more importantly, and the real reason we got them, is this allows us to throw fire and earth into our communions. Earth is going to give us like earth power and then Army of Gold and stuff. And then these guys being a little higher astral than my thaumaturgs mean they'll be less likely magic duel targets too. So that's alright. They're gonna be slow to recruit, but that's fine. I'm gonna be gold constrained, I think, rather than fort point constrained. Next, we have the Royal Navigator. And he gets... Basically, he's going to be my very reliable air access for throwing into communions. I expect this is going to be the guy casting Power of Spheres. But I'm not sure. It could also be a death random if I'm going to put up Life After Death, but... with the communion of four dudes behind him, so magic power +2, Power of the Spheres, this guy can do a lot of air and water stuff. The water is also important because... I mean, I can also use Scrotty for it, but he can do Grip of Winter and stuff like that. Because that's going to be ubiquitous and everywhere, so I want to have somebody who can do it. Now, he's not sacred, but that doesn't matter as much, because this guy is not going to be like a workhorse mage. He's going to be like a specialty unit to arrive with my army. The other thing was I wanted to get the air and the water on the same guy so that I can do Freezing Mists. Because my undead are going to be immune to it, but if I'm fighting anybody using anything other than undead, it's going to probably murder them, because it's armor negating damage. And unless they have like 10 cult resistance, they're basically going to be screwed. Okay, so we've been through this line of units. Now we're on to my troops. So I'm going to start with the first troop I picked, which was the Ice Guard. The Ice Guard is kind of sick, so he gets Cold Protection 2, and he's Protection 17, so I believe, my math is right, when we were in Cold 3, he will get 6 bonus to Protection, which I don't know how it stacks because I haven't really played Middle or Late Age Atlantis, but it will be something close, I imagine, to like 23 Protection on a 15 gold unit, which is ridiculous. That's really, really, really high. He also comes with Cold Resistance 8, which is nice. It will make them mostly immune to Freezing Mist, but not completely. Dark Vision 50, which is a nice buff. Magic resistance is kind of only okay, so these guys might peter off a little bit in the late game, but they have an Ice Glaive, which is important because it's a magic weapon, and it does high damage. It's 9, and then with the strength, because it's a two-handed weapon, you get bonus damage from the strength, so basically it's like, what? Probably like 13, it's probably like a 22 damage attack, if I had to guess. And they have Snow Move, and they're amphibious. And we already are going to have our eyes on the water. The commander I got, which I guess we'll cover now, because I'm mentioning that for the first time, is, she is a poor amphibian. She can lead undead by default. You can't see it here, but she can. She's got Undead Leadership 80. Magic Leader 40, Leader 80, so she's a good commander. She's a little expensive at 115. This is another indie kind of recruit. Holy One, we've got Theodora. The only underwater nation is Theodoros, or however you say it, but she'll be able to spam banishment for whatever that's worth, while she leads troops underwater. The leadership part is mostly for on land. She's going to be my best land leader. But underwater, she's just going to be able to lead a phenomenal amount of undead. And that will be pretty useful for raiding, and then with a little bit of banishment, we can probably take care of the ghosts. Because ghosts are pretty good against long dead by themselves. But also being holy, she's going to get our undead leadership, so she's probably going to be like 180 leadership. So she's going to be able to lead a lot of undead. And then this banishment will be meaningful, I believe. Oh, whoops, I got rid of her. But anyway, she goes here. Next, we have the crossbowman. And this is the middle-aged Ulm Arbalist. And basically, it is a... I have 2 archer units. I have the Helot Archer, which is really, really cheap. It's a slave. It costs 8 gold to get. No resources. I can mass them really quickly. If I get rushed by other archers, there's a good chance that what I'm going to want to do is spam these guys out, and I'm already going enchantment, so I'm gonna have very easy access to... I mean, this guy by himself, he can do Power of the Spears, what do you call it? Phoenix Pyre, or Phoenix Power, and then Flaming Arrows, without even being in a communion. But yeah, we can just shit out a ton of these guys early. And also the way the army, you can actually pick your starting army composition, but this is the only unit I have that is fewer gold than it is, or that's more gold than it is resources. So I can use that to somewhat balance out my starting army. But yeah, so these guys are going to be for dealing with archers mainly, and my arbalists are going to be for dealing with like elite troops. The thing that sucks about Arbalist is they do not have a great rate of fire. Like, they only fire every 3 turns, whereas these guys fire every turn. But they have unlimited ammo, just as it works. I think it's kind of a bug, actually. But anyway, they have unlimited ammo, and they hit for just a boatload of damage. If we get Strength of Giants on them, they're going to hit for... Like, right now, that without it, they hit for, I think this is going to add 3 to it, 4? I think it's going to add 4, like 16 piercing damage. That's an armor-piercing attack. So if the enemy has, let's say, 20 protection, first their attacks, or their protection's going to get cut by half, so it's going to be 10. Then it gets cut by a third because it's, or 20% because it's piercing, so it'll be 8 protection. So then it's 8 protection versus versus 15. So a 20 protection dude will take 8 damage plus DRN. So that's kind of a lot. Now, there's not going to be a ton coming in, but if I have a lot of these, it will be enough that it's very hard to, or not very hard, it's somewhat difficult to super combatant against a lot of arbalists. And what I'm worried about is people running kind of elite stuff into my army. The other thing is these Helot Archers are going to be very, very helpful if the enemy is coming at me, as I expect they will, with a lot of undead. The other nice thing about having very good air access is I'm going to be able to do nice things like Wind Guide, which I believe is Alteration. Yeah, it's Alt 4, which is very accessible. And then Aerofend, which is up enchantment. And it's enchantment 6, which is where we're going to be beelining anyway. So my own troops are going to be mostly immune to archer fire. So there are a lot of goodies for me in enchantment. And like my Eagle Kings can all do Aerofend, like boom. These guys can do it as part of even just a very basic communion, like even just with 2 Scrotty, they can do it. Because that will get them up to Air 2, and then they can do Power of the Spheres, which will get them up to Air 3, and actually an Air 2 can cast it, so we don't even have to have Power of the Spheres on these guys. And that is going to make it where the friendly fire that I'm going to get from fielding these guys is going to be much less. So anyway, that's it. I've tried to focus mostly on things that scale well. Like, things I can get anywhere. I've tried as much as possible to get super cheap shit, rather than expensive shit. The only expensive shit that I got, really, kind of the Magus, the High Magus, and then the Eagle King, obviously, is super expensive. He's a luxury good, and I may not be making that many. You know, having that, this also gives me potentially access to a few things. One, if I empower him in blood, a few times I can get up to make the Robe of the Magi. And then especially once I have the Robe of the Magi, it's going to... The other thing, empowering in blood gives me access to Bloodstones. So, with Robe of the Magi and Bloodstone and Boots of the Earth or whatever, I can do Staff of Elemental Mastery, which would be kind of sick. So anyway, this guy is going to be good in a lot of ways. I don't have a ton of ways to use Blood Slaves. The main way I'm going to use Blood Slaves is going to be lifelong protection for my Dryads. Where are you? For my Dryads. It's going to be items for my Scrotty. It's going to be empowering and making items. Later in the game, I'm going to empower Shadow Seers, and then I'm going to have horror spam from these guys. But yeah, that's my main use. We're not really gonna do the blood summons, I don't think. I think they're too expensive, and we've got undead. We might do like Ice Devils or something later, but it's an option. We can do a bunch of different things. These guys I could also empower one of these guys to do Bloodstones too, but I'm already gonna have to empower this guy to do Robe of the Magi, so we're probably gonna do that. You can get lucky with an Eagle King and get a bonus path. That's super sick. If you get an Air 5, that's super lucky. But yeah, if I look at it, what are the strengths I have? These guys, I have Stealthy Raiders. I have Assassins. I have just horrendous amounts of free spawn. My research is going to be okay. Since I'm going scales, I'm probably going to go... I'm probably going to go magic, but I'm not sure. I'm not even sure how much I want to bless anymore. At the beginning I was thinking I want to bless for... Like, we're definitely going to take Undead Reanimation, or Undead Command. And I may want to take Poison Resistance, but I'm not sure. So we'll figure it out as we go. Oh, the final thing... So I have to make up my mind on which of the spells I get. The final thing I have to pick is my national item. And the national item, one way to do it is you just click here on national item, or national only. It'll show you all the national items. So, ideally, I want to get something that this guy can forge, so he gets these cross paths. So basically a fire and then any of the earth and then any of the elemental cross paths he can do. So we could make this super cheap, which is going to give magic resistance and basic resistances to all our guys for, it would be... I guess 2 gems total. Like with the hammer, we don't even need really the... Yeah. I mean, that would be sick, actually. It doesn't even really have to be my Master Smith, or my Warrior Smith. He doesn't even really need a hammer. You can't go lower than 1 gem of each. So even though, like, technically it would only be 1 gem, but I don't think that will work. I'm pretty sure that won't work. But, like, that's an option. Put this on them. It's actually a really good option. You know, the other option is I could do... like, spam out Anemone Maces. These guys are pretty good at, like, poison. You've got the Jellybeard thing, which gives you Protective Force, which is kind of cool. But this is expensive. These things are a little too pricey for me. We're not a blood-sacrificing nation, so the Jade Knife we don't need. Mercy Brand's kind of cool. It gives you Inquisitor, which can make it really easy to keep out enemy Dominion. And then a patrol bonus is okay. Defense +2, protection. MR, yeah, I'm not super digging that. This gives you a Sprite in your retinue, and it gives you Lucky, which is okay, but it's not going to benefit from my Forge bonus. Things that are going to benefit from my Forge bonus. The Godslayer Spear. I mean, honestly, the Black Halberd's also pretty good. It is... You guys probably can't see. Let me zoom in. Basically, it's a really high damage weapon that I could put on potentially my Scrotty to take out Sacred Thugs. It's going to do a lot of damage. But it's probably better to do 2 one-handed items, or to give him a shield or something. So I'm not really sold on that, but it would be cheap. It only cost me 1 gem to make. I mean, 2 gems to make. And I imagine a Scrotty with it could probably... It could probably clean up some of the... some super combatants. Very high damage. Yeah, I could see that working. What next? We've got Black Laurel, no. The Cockerel Scepter is kind of a joke. You get Holy Pyre, which is kind of okay. I mean, like, with the amount of undead spam we're gonna have, it's not bad. This is interesting in that it gives you +1 holy. Which honestly... And inspirational. And it casts Fanaticism at the start of battle. I mean, that's kind of sick. I think our... Let's take a look at our smiths real quick. I think they can actually random into that path. It's fire air. The chance of getting a fire air is 1 in 4 times 1 in 4 times 0.5. So that's 0.25 times 0.25 times 0.5. So it's 3%. Which is pretty low. And if I don't have it on them, then I'm not going to be able to make it. So I'd have to make like 40 of them to get 1, and then if I'm unlucky, I'd have to make another 40. I mean, not, you know, not exactly, but that's a way to think about it. You could empower, but not feeling that. But this is kind of cool. I mean, the holy would be nice. Let's think about this real quick. We could... For those of you who... This may seem like it's dragging on now because I'm going through this. Man, to come up with this list of, like, to come up with these troops, I've been doing this all day for like 8 hours. Been sitting here thinking about it. Which you may look at this and be like, this is all you could come up with after 8 hours? I see all these problems. Well, we'll see how it plays out. I think... I might not have all the details right, but I think I've got a pretty good big picture. what would this do? This would, A, let me get... these guys could claim thrones, which would be sick. It would cost me, if I got a random of this guy, it would cost me... 7 gems to forge. It would make, if I put it on my lady down here, she would do fanaticism at the start of battle, which would help a lot with morale. And morale can be a motherfucker in games. Especially once like Wailing Winds and stuff comes out, and then inspirational is pretty sick too. This basically is like +2 leadership, but actually there's another item which is +2 leadership, which these guys can forge. Then it's just like these bonuses, which are nice. I mean, this is a good item. I would totally like to take it. So this is a candidate. We'll just put it here. The problem is it's hard for me to forge. The other thing that we have, and I think this is the other candidate for me, is the Mercury Barrel. So any of my water randoms here can forge it. And it's going to take... Well, basically, it's going to give me a living Mercury size 5. And these guys have Poison Cloud. So I would probably want to put it on people that have poison resistance, and that's one thing I haven't checked for, like who actually has poison resistance amongst all of my dudes. Nobody has it. If we took it as our bless, we could run into the issue that we get affected by the cloud of poison before this actually triggers. Or, but like, we could take the poison damage before we get the bless on us. The advantages that this has, and why this is cool, is I'm going to be in the cold, and in the cold, the living bottle is going to give you an ice elemental, which suck, but these guys are the shit, even in cold. So, like, if it's a water bottle assassin, like, if I'm fighting other people and they put water bottles to deal with me, like, this guy will murder ice elementals. It also goes pretty, I mean, it's just a really good unit. I don't want to mix it with my Ice Guard, but it's good to mix with my skeletons. So one question, if we're going to do that, one question is, how do we, like, what items are going to give us poison res? And are any of them terribly cheap or, like, not require nature? Like, this is pretty good. The crown. I could see my dryads having a crown, which is going to give them enough poison resistance to carry one of these. And then they can kind of wreck the front line. I mean, they can... This water, or the poison elemental will wreck their bodyguards. And I don't have to worry so much about getting... I mean, she'll probably still want to do a poison buff after this, but this will be enough to probably get her through. Everything else here is kind of too expensive. Only really the Serpent Chris and this are options, I think. And the Snake Ring, but the Snake Ring kind of sucks. So I'd probably go with the Missile. And Lucky is nice, especially if we're dealing with, like... One thing we're going to be using in this game, I think, is my... no unscripted buffing mod, and so we're going to be much more likely to get hit by evocations and stuff, and Lucky is actually nice to have. So very possible this goes on, like, this would be a good combo, the Barrel of Mercury and then Living Water. And honestly, in Cold Dominion, these guys are going to be way better than water elementals. So I'm thinking that is probably the best. And I can only get one, so it's really between these two. Let's come back here and look at national only. So, just to make sure we're doing an exhaustive list here, we've also got the Spear of the Mortigans, which gives a decay and life drain. So that's kind of cool. I could understand wanting that. If you're doing like a repel thing, would be cool. Because you get the life drain, which is of course really nice to have. It's a one-handed weapon that's length 3, which is really good. It would be good on Fomorian Giants. This, which is pretty cool, it's only 4 gems, so with the hammer it's only 2. Again, it's going to be kind of hard for me to make with my warrior smiths. And I would probably rather have the other item, the armor. I think this armor also gives you reinvigoration, right? Oh no, just magic resistance. Sword gives you reinvigoration. The Varga, which lets you spam out lightning bolts, so this is also really good on assassins. And it gives you shock resistance, which is kind of cool. Then we've got the Windcatcher Sail. And I think this increases your sailing distance if you're playing Facia, or just anybody that can sail. Which, if I went Vanderdraat, that would actually be an interesting item to get. If it worked. Jellybeard's cool, but not for us. So really it's between these two. So I've got some decisions to make before I close up, and the decisions are going to be... I know I want this, because I care about the early game too much. So the questions are, which one of these do I want for the national spells? Okay, there's another national spell option, which I'm going to throw out there. I think this is another spell option, Summon Firebird. And this will let me turn my fire gems into Firebirds. Thing is, I'm kind of going to want lanterns. So I'm not sure. You know, thinking about research too, because I'm kind of looking at this, thinking about what my lantern timing would be. I think if it looks like I'm going to be at peace, like I'm not going to get bum rushed, I'm probably going to focus more on construction. After I get some critical alteration, so I can get lanterns out. But if I'm not getting rushed, or if I am getting rushed, I'm going to go enchantment really fast. Okay. I think this is out, honestly. That's definitely out. Like that. So then the question is this. Now, how would I make up my mind? Are there other spells I would potentially want to get? This is basically going to... If I have this, I'm going to win the late game. I feel like I'm already going to win the late game. Deft of the Sun is good. But it's not phenomenal. It's not phenomenal. I would also have to get it on my... If I get this, I have to commit to getting it on my Pretender. Because I'm definitely going to have Death on my Pretender, and I may have Fire. But I'm not sure. So, that's something to think about. This is neutral, the taking out the income and resources. The only people this is particularly good for are Blood Nations. And I'm kind of a Blood Nation, but I'm not going to be as strong of a Blood Nation as other people. The darkness is going to help me a little, but probably not much. The biggest thing this is going to be is keeping down Second Sun. And making the world cold. But it's going to make people also want to kill me if the world's cold. And if we look at Illwinter here, Yeah. So I'm not sure. I feel like this is going to be the thing that lets me win if the game goes late. Like, I think this is what's going to let the game... Like, fighting over temperature scales is nice, but it's probably the case people aren't going to put up... Like, if people put up Second Sun, it will force me to put up Ill Winter. If the 5 slots get filled, I can do a big casting of Ill Winter, knock one out, and then somebody's going to have to do a huge casting of Second Sun to put it up. But they may pool gems for that, but they won't know what it's going to hit. I feel like Firebirds might be best, given that I have. So this might be what we do. I might see if the other Heim, the Jotunheim, wants to do... Well, let's see. I'll see what other people think. There's a decent chance somebody else takes Theft of the Sun. Which I'd be totally fine with. I don't think they will, but we'll see. Theft of the Sun, if I do it, it's going to piss people off and they're going to try to kill me. Whereas this, I'm going to be quietly sitting away, just becoming ridiculously powerful. The only problem is I kind of want lanterns, so we're going to do some early fireside searching. So I'm probably going to do this, and I'm probably going to do this. Yeah. So people are going to have to be fighting living mercury. One thing I want to know is, like, do bugs... Do they have poison resistance? So this thing's going to kill all my bugs, which is kind of a problem. It may be worth testing. I'll probably test Swarm Assassins with this and without it. If this just murders all my bugs, which I kind of expect it will, it may not be worth it. But if I'm trying to kill... Yeah, the nature guys with... Well, I could do... Because my guys are water, so they could do, like, summon Lesser Water Elemental with a water lens. And in some ways that's going to be actually more gem efficient. And this guy plus a water elemental. Let's actually check the spell. I'm pretty sure it's a size 3. Water. Yeah, it's going to give me a size 3. So if we zoom in here. So this guy, yeah, he does have poison resistance. So he can go kind of hand in hand with this living mercury. Now, in reality, it's probably going to be an ice elemental. But these guys, I think, will deal with... Like, this is only, if you look at it, it's going to be... Because I have the Master Smith, so he's going to make water lenses for... what, 2 gems? So this is 2 gems. This is 7 gems. So in total, it's 9 gems for both of these. So you're gonna have to fight a Dryad. Oh, and then I'm also... But to do this, it's actually more, because I've got to do the crown or whatever to get poison resistance, probably. So it's... That's going to be 3. So it's going to be like 12 gems. Yeah, to fight this guy plus a lucky Dryad. And I mean, the lucky Dryad can, if I'm really worried about it, like if they've got pretty good counterattacks, it can do Swarm at the end of the script. So like, maybe it does some other things, and then the last turn it's got an extra gem, which it doesn't use most of the time, because most of the time it's not going to get to turn 5. But if it does, then it's going to do Swarm, and then this guy will probably be dead by then. So I don't know. I think these are going to be some nasty freaking Dryads. And if I want to, I can do traditional water bottle swarm, so I can mix it up. So then it's like, okay, you have to design something that can survive living mercury and an ice elemental, or a size 5 ice elemental. Or I can do a water bracelet and a water lens and give it a water gem, and then it does a size 6 water elemental with summon water elemental. So I think I have a lot of options. Anyway, that is it, guys. This will be an interesting game. I think it's going to be pretty cancerous in the sense that everybody's going to have something pretty damn strong. I'd like to think that I drafted the best, but I don't think I did. I know I didn't draft badly. I know the game well enough to know that, like, I definitely have a shot at winning. I don't know whether I will. Because there's going to be people have all sorts of things. And maybe we'll come back in another episode and look at all the things people have, but, there's Hell Blesses, where you have recruitable sacreds everywhere, like Eagle Warriors or Knights of the Chalice. There's Anakites, there's Dione, there's Fomorian Giants. There are a bunch of scary things out there. So, who knows how this all will go, but I feel like, at least in my own mind, I have all my bases covered. All right, boys, see you next time.